All right, so as the title suggests, what I'm going over today is going to be my top 10 list of niche fragrances that I would rebuy if, say, for instance, I lost my, entire fragrance collection. All right, so this is just going to be the niche fragrances. There is technically one designer fragrance on this list, but I mean, at least in my opinion, it is still within like that niche sort of range, both in terms of its style, as far as how that fragrance is created, as well as, obviously the price tag on it as well. So, just to get the list started, I'm going to start off with a fragrance from Le Labo, and this is Le Labo's Another 13. So I just recently got myself a full bottle of this fragrance, and this is definitely a fragrance that I would absolutely rebuy, for sure. Now, thankfully for me, I have enough fragrances within my collection that, I mean, I'll probably never go through a full bottle of this. But I mean, in the rare case that I did actually go through a full 100 ml bottle of this would definitely be a fragrance that I would look to, repurchase, unless there was like, some sort of issue with reformulation, and then all of a sudden the new batches just didn't smell the same, or they performed a lot worse. Then maybe I would, possibly reconsider. But outside of that, I would say this would be definitely one of the fragrances that I would be looking to repurchase if I, were to lose my entire collection, man. This is, to me, one of the easiest wearing, mass appealing, everyday kind of like signature scent worthy types of scents. I do think that it's a fragrance that you can wear like all year round. For the most part, though, I do still think that I think this does the best in like the warmer weather, because it definitely is kind of like a lighter, sort of fruity floral type of fragrance. I feel like, spring and summertime are probably the best times really to wear this, but it does come across strong enough to where I do still think you could wear this in like the fall or the winter time. Um, it is a fragrance that a lot of people are going to go nose blind to, and I think it's mainly because of like the notes and the ingredients that they use to make this fragrance. There's like a lot of like aroma chemicals and stuff like that, but this is still a very, very strong fragrance and a very long lasting fragrance, and it really does, get compliments for sure. This fragrance, if you're not familiar with it starts off with like a really, really nice juicy pear note. One of the best, pear opening fragrances, at least in my opinion anyway. And there's also like some, I would say, some florals in the background, some woody notes, again, definitely like some aroma chemicals. It's a very, very unique scent, but it's a very, very beautiful scent as well. Some people, I think you could say, would probably consider this slightly feminine because of like that fruity pear that you get in the opening. But to me, this is definitely a very sort of unisex, easy to wear type of scent. And I would absolutely purchase this again, man. It is pretty expensive. I really don't see this on too many discounters, but I have seen that Costco does sell this, and they have it for the cheapest. For 100 ml, I believe Costco has this for like around 230. If you get it really from anywhere else, it's going to be a lot more expensive. I just went ahead and bought it from the Labo website. I believe it was like 340 or 350, something like that. So definitely it's pretty expensive for sure, but it is worth it in my opinion. And again, the performance, the smell, I think it all makes it worth it. So again, man, check out Another 13 from Le Labo. All right, so the next one on the list, this is actually a very affordable but really high quality niche smelling scent. And this one is from the house of Nichane, and this is Nichane's Colognise. So this is the original Colognise fragrance. This is a very like floral, slightly, kind of citrusy, fresh style fragrance, man. A lot of people kind of, when they refer to this fragrance, they refer to it as being more sort of like a citrusy, type of scent. While there are definitely some citruses in the opening of this fragrance, to me, this is definitely more like a floral style scent, in my opinion. It definitely comes across very floral, even kind of slightly powdery. It comes across very green in the opening as well. Yeah, very green, slightly citrusy, like, tart citruses. But I mean, that's really not the biggest thing that I get from this fragrance. Is like I said, I mainly get more kind of like florals, some green notes, a little bit of powderiness, especially in the dry down of the fragrance. But overall, this comes across very kind of like fresh and clean. Again, I do think that this is a very kind of mass appealing style, niche scent. And it's very easy to wear. Definitely something that, you would wear in the summertime. I think this is a summertime freshie that you can wear that actually gives pretty decent performance, like around probably 6.5 to 7 hours or so of total longevity. Gives you pretty decent projection for like the first hour and a half or so. This is not going to perform, I would say, as beastly as like what some of the other Nichane fragrances perform like, that come in the different style bottles than this. But this is still a pretty solid performer. And I mean, the other thing is, this is probably one of the most affordable Nichane fragrances that you can find. I got this one from Aura Fragrance for like $67 or something like that. It was like really, really cheap. Like, I've paid more for, clones than what I paid for this. So, for this fragrance to be that cheap, it is a 100 ml bottle, and for you to get the quality that you get with this, obviously Nichane fragrances are like super high quality. This is a very, very good deal, man. It really is. I think really all of the Colognise fragrances are. I only have 2 of the 3. The only one that I don't have is Colognise Saffron. But this is, I would say probably my favorite one is the original so far that I've smelled anyway. I haven't smelled the Saffron one, but I do think that this one, I do prefer it a little bit more than I do the Hesperide Colognise. But yeah, man, this is really, really good. I would say if you're into fragrances like Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino, then I do think that you'll also like something like this. Not to say that this smells exactly like that, but to me, it's kind of in the same sort of family of fragrances, you could say. So again, man, check out Nichane's Colognise. All right, next one on the list, this fragrance, it has like 2 different versions of it. So, I mean, really, I would say it just depends on which version you can afford or which one you prefer. But this is going to be the Elysium DNA. Now, I do have both, or I guess you could say 2 out of the 3 fragrances. Possibly 4. I have seen a new noir version that kind of popped up on the internet. But basically, for me, I would say my favorite version of Elysium would be the Parfum version, the Parfum pour Homme. I also do really enjoy Elysium Parfum Cologne as well. The Parfum Cologne, this one is definitely, it's going to be a little bit more kind of fresher, a little bit more diffusive. But it's not going to last as long as what the Parfum does. So the Parfum, to me, it does last a little bit longer than what the Parfum Cologne does, for sure. And even though I've seen, a person who was like, a high up person, within the Roja company, from what he said was like basically these two, the formulation on them are like supposed to be exactly the same. The notes are supposed to be exactly the same. It's just this is, it has a higher concentration to it. I do kind of feel like there are still like some differences just overall in terms of smell. Maybe that is just from, the difference in concentration. But, to me, this does come across a little bit different than what the Parfum Cologne does. Like I said, this just has a more kind of fresher sort of feel to it. This does have a more sort of concentrated, slightly deeper, type of scent to it. But I would say again, man, you really can't go wrong with either one. It's one of it. Each one of these, I would say, has probably one of the best openings of any fragrance that you can smell, especially when it comes to fresher citrusy types of scents. Both of these have some of the best openings of any scent within that type of scent profile. It's a summertime fragrance in my opinion, for sure. Even the Parfum pour Homme, in my opinion, this is still more kind of like a summertime or warmer weather type of scent. I would just say probably the Parfum, this would probably be something that you would more so wear probably in more kind of like upscale situations. So like, when you're more dressed up, maybe if you're at some sort of event, something like that, where you want it to, kind of last throughout the entire event. Whereas the Parfum Cologne, I would say the Parfum Cologne is a little bit more of sort of like a everyday kind of like dumb reach, freshy type of scent that still has that, Raja, sophistication to it and, depth to it, that a lot of his fragrances have. So yeah, man, I would say really for both of these, I would say I would definitely still look to get both of these if I were to, lose my entire niche collection or whatnot. These two would both still be fragrances that I would want to keep. And yeah, man, these two I really, really enjoy. I do really, really love the Elysium scent profile a lot. Like I said, performance on this one is going to be better. You're going to be looking at like around 7 to 8 hours or so of longevity with the Parfum. Whereas with the Parfum Cologne, this one is more like around that 5 hour mark or so, like 4 to 5 hours. All right. So again, man, check out Elysium Parfum as well as the Parfum Cologne. All right, the next one on the list, this one I just have a sample of, but I do intend to at some point get a full bottle of this because this is actually, this is pretty fire. This one is from Marc-Antoine Barrois, and this is Tilia, all right? So I know a lot of people, when it comes to that particular fragrance house, a lot of people are familiar with Ganymede. I've smelled Ganymede. That fragrance was not for me. I really didn't enjoy the way that smelled. But this fragrance though, this one is quite good. I would say the easiest way for me to kind of explain what this fragrance smells like is it smells like, Lafayette Street, in my opinion, like Bond Number 9 Lafayette Street or Game of Spades Wild Card. If you amped up the florals, made them as high quality as what they are in Lafayette Street, and basically took out all the vanilla and like tonka that you get from the Lafayette Street. So if you took out a lot of those kind of sweeter notes that you get in Lafayette Street that make it a little bit more thicker and sweeter, that's kind of what you get with this. This smells a lot like, in my opinion, Lafayette Street and Wild Card, like when you first spray it on. Now, definitely as the fragrance starts to develop, I will say it does smell like a different fragrance, but it does have like the way that the florals are done in this fragrance, it does have, in my opinion, a lot of similarities to something like Lafayette Street for sure. Like I said, it's just not as sweet, and it comes across as more floral, and again, I would say even higher quality than what something like Lafayette Street or Game Space Wildcard does. So yeah, man, I think this is a little bit more of like a niche style version of that scent profile, and so you could say a little bit more kind of grown up, whereas Lafayette Street I think is maybe you could say a little bit more on the mass appealing side, since it's not as floral as what this is, Tilia, but the florals in this are extremely high quality, man. So like I said, I do plan to get a bottle of this, and so if I had a full bottle of it and were to lose my collection, this would also be another fragrance that I would be looking to buy again. Performance on it is also very good as well. To me, it does project about the same as what Game of Spades Wildcard does. So you get pretty decent projection for like the first hour and a half, 2 hours or so. And then after that, you're still able to smell it very, very good for, I would say, at least like 10 plus hours or so. So good performance on this. It smells super high quality. The price on it is not crazy from what I've seen. I think I've seen this at discounters for like a full bottle for like around $200 or so. So not a crazy price on this fragrance, and it is very, very good, man. So definitely, again, check out Tilia from Marc-Antoine Barrois. All right, next one on the list. This one is another Raja Parfums fragrance, and this is Raja's Oceania. All right, so Oceania, this was a total blind buy by me, which obviously, blind buying a fragrance, especially this expensive, is not necessarily advised. But just looking at the notes of this fragrance, I felt like this was a safe blind buy, and it ended up being that. This fragrance, when you first spray it on, is very citrusy and fresh. A lot of people kind of compare the opening of this to like something like Sprite. So because of that, people also kind of compare the opening of this to like Parfums de Marly Setley. To me, this comes across much more like fizzier, and the citruses are a lot more like realistic and higher quality than what they are in Setley. At least in my opinion anyway. I do think that this is definitely a much more higher quality scent than what Setley is. Now, I do think that Setley is definitely the more mass appealing fragrance, because as this fragrance starts to dry down, it does become, very kind of like floral. There is also like a slight kind of like saltiness to this. So the weird thing about this is like, this is not really an aquatic, at least in my opinion. Like, it doesn't really come across as an aquatic. This to me comes across as like a citrusy, fougere, floral type of scent, but that also kind of has like a saltiness to it. To me, I don't really get like marine vibes from this fragrance. I don't really get mossy type of vibes from the fragrance or anything like that. Like I said, it comes across like a citrusy, floral, salty type of fragrance. So I guess really the only sort of oceanic part of this fragrance really that you get is that slightly sort of saltiness that you get, and that really doesn't come across in the fragrance until you're like hours into it. But it's a very, very nice freshie, man. I do think that in terms of freshies, this is also a little bit more on the mature side, but definitely not like an old man fragrance at all. Like, this is still, in my opinion, a very wearable fragrance for most people. I would say this is going to be something that anyone from probably age I would say like 25 and up really would be able to enjoy this. So this is not like a super old, mature style fragrance at all. This is definitely, in my opinion, you know, I would say really for more of like the masses. And I was really, really surprised with, you know, again, how high quality and how good this smelled, you know, especially for this being like a blind buy. Performance on this is also very good as well. So this fragrance, I easily get like around 7+ hours or so of total longevity, 7 to 8 hours. And the projection on it is also very strong for like the first probably hour and a half to 2 hours. So this is not one of those like super high-end expensive fragrances that only last for like 2 hours and then they're completely gone. This actually does perform. All right. So again, I would definitely recommend Roja Parfum's Oceania for sure. All right. Okay, so the next fragrance on the list, this is another one from Nichane, and this is, I think, one of their best fragrances just in general. This is Nichane's Ambra Calabria. So Ambra Calabria, this is it's like a summertime amber vanilla scent for the most part. So, you know, when you first spray this on, you don't get any sort of amber, you really don't get any vanilla. You get like a blast of these like green notes from this fragrance. So it comes across super green in the initial opening. You know, I think maybe for anyone who's not necessarily used to niche fragrances, you know, the opening may kind of throw you off a little bit because of how green this comes across. I'll even admit, like when I first got this fragrance, I wasn't expecting this to be as green as what it is in the initial opening. Like this is super green in the opening. Like it smells like basically like freshly cut grass for the most part in the initial opening. You definitely, though, you want to give this fragrance a little bit of time to settle down. And once it does, it settles down into, in my opinion, what's one of the best, you know, sort of summertime kind of vanilla amber scents. So you get some citruses that start to come across in this. I want to say the citrus in this is like a lemon note, I believe. Maybe some other citruses as well, but it's like lemon, vanilla, and some amber is what you get with this. And I mean, in the dry down, this is like one of the best niche fragrances just in general, man. Definitely, like I said, I would say one of the best from the house of Nichane. Definitely super underrated. Like I said, I just think some people, like if they only judge this fragrance by how it smells in the initial opening, a lot of people may not necessarily give this one a chance. But this is a extremely high quality, extremely sexy, really nice smelling scent, man. You know, this is another one of those scents that I think, you know, could definitely be worn by just about anybody. You know, really, I would say 25 and up. But again, you know, I would say don't judge this fragrance by like the first couple of minutes, because that greenness definitely starts to go away. And this starts to turn into a really, you know, beautiful scent. All right. So performance on this is also, again, really good, you know, as you would expect with any sort of Nichane fragrance. So you're going to get well over 8 to 10 plus hours or so of total longevity with this. So this is going to last you all day long. And it's also going to give you very good projection as well. So really solid projection, I would say, for like the first 2.5 to 3 hours or so. And then it does dial back a little bit, but it never really becomes like a super like light skin scent on you. This is still very prominent on you throughout the entire life of the fragrance. So this would definitely, again, be another fragrance that I would absolutely be looking to get another bottle of if I were to, you know, lose my collection. This is also very affordable as well. I want to say a new bottle of this is the 50 ml 50 ml is like around $100 to $110 or so. So super affordable for a niche fragrance, man. Again, check out Ambra Calabria from Nishane. All right, next one on the list. This one is the sole designer fragrance on this list, but I still consider this, scent profile or this scent a niche fragrance because it is definitely, in my opinion, like a niche style fragrance. This one is Louis Vuitton's Imagination. So Imagination, obviously, you all know who consistently watch this channel. This is definitely my favorite fragrance right now. Especially in terms of like freshy style scents. This fragrance just works. It's very citrusy, tart. It has a very sort of soft and clean, soapy neroli. The dry down has a very nice, smooth tea note as well. I love everything about this fragrance. And then the biggest, selling point on this fragrance, at least for me anyway, is it is a very kind of like light, fresh scent, but it's a very long lasting scent as well. So, I easily get over 8 hours on skin with this fragrance whenever I wear it. And the projection on it is not like super beast mode, but I feel like it doesn't necessarily need to be. This is definitely a fragrance that's meant to kind of be worn like in the summertime when it's warm outside and your body is warmer. So, I feel like that's really the best time to wear this fragrance. That's when it smells the best, is really just in the summertime for the most part. And this is definitely a fragrance that I reach for a lot in the summertime. Obviously, you can see, I have a pretty decent dent in this bottle. The price for a lot of people when it comes to really any Louis Vuitton fragrance is not necessarily going to be, the best thing. Especially with how often they tend to, increase their prices. When I bought this fragrance was $330, and I think at that point it had gone up maybe like once or twice from like when it initially came out. And then I think now it's probably up to like around $350 or something like that. So it's like they just keep kind of like slowly raising the price of this, of all of their fragrances. I do think that even though there are definitely, clones out there that come extremely close to this fragrance, the best one I would say really that I've smelled has been Marwa from Arabiat Prestige. I feel like really with most of these Louis Vuitton fragrances, especially this one, I think if you want the same experience, if you want the same smell, for the most part, you just have to buy the fragrance. You have to buy the original. There are there's, I would say, some other Louis Vuitton fragrances that I have gotten, clones of that I felt like were, good enough to where they actually did kind of replace the original. But with most of these Louis Vuitton fragrances, I do really feel like you do kind of have to buy the original to get that full experience, to get the, the same quality or whatnot. So again, man, definitely I would say check out Louis Vuitton's Imagination. All right, next fragrance on the list. This one is another Nishane fragrance. And this is it's one of my favorite tea fragrances just in general. This one is Nishane's Wulong Cha. So Wulong Cha, this has a lot going on in it, but it's definitely, like I said, it's one of my favorite tea scents. This is very citrusy in the opening, like very kind of like citrusy and sharp though. Very strong as well. I would say this has like one of the strongest openings of, just about any other sort of fresh scent that I have. Like this stuff is normally so strong that at times it's kind of like tickled my nose a little bit, how strong it kind of comes across in the initial opening. But it's like very citrusy. It's heavy on fig. It's heavy on like that oolong tea as well. It definitely has like some kind of like fresh spices in it. It has some greenness to it as well. There's a lot going on in this fragrance, but it is super high quality, super beast mode in terms of its, you know, performance. And this to me is, like I said, it's definitely one of my favorite kind of like, you know, fig and tea scents, just in general. Smells a lot like the scent that I currently have in my diffuser from my apartment. There's a scent that I get from my diffuser. I believe it's supposed to be the same scent that they have in the it's some hotel in Boston. I can't remember the exact name of it, but basically it smells a lot like that particular scent. And I really, really like the way that just that overall smell is. You know, it's very citrusy. It's very sort of calming. It is slightly kind of floral as well, you could say. But just a very kind of like fresh, clean, you know, really, really calming type of scent, man. And this, I would say again, would definitely be another fragrance that I would absolutely purchase again if I were to lose my niche collection. This is also another affordable niche scent as well. So, I mean, just like Ambra Calabria, these two typically are like about the same price or so. I want to say the Wulong Cha is normally a little bit more expensive than Ambra Calabria. I just think it's because this one is a little bit more popular than what Ambra Calabria is. So like, I think typically the cheapest that I've seen Wulong Cha go for 50 ml is like around maybe 120. Whereas I've seen Ambra Calabria go for like around 100 to 110. So again, still super affordable, I would say, for niche scents. All right, so definitely check out Wulong Cha from Nishane. All right, and then the next one on the list, this one is from Byredo. This one is Bal D'Afrique. Really, really love this one. I would say this is definitely my favorite from the house. I know they've got the newer version of this, which from what I understand is supposed to be like stronger and a little bit more sweeter. I haven't smelled it, but I really enjoy the way that Bal D'Afrique smells, man. It definitely comes across giving you like Sprite types of vibes when you first spray it on. So, you know, very kind of like citrusy and sweet. You know, you get citruses, you get a heavy dose of black currant with this. And then, you know, definitely as it starts to dry down, you do kind of get like a drier sort of like a dry but clean sort of vetiver with this fragrance. It just comes across as smelling just very clean, very sort of fresh, really, really mass appealing as well. And this is a scent profile that's been out for quite a while. I believe this fragrance came out in like what, 2009 or something like that, or maybe even before then. So this fragrance has definitely been out for quite a while. But this, I would say, is easily one of my favorite, you know, niche style scents for sure, and definitely one of my favorite freshies. This can also be had for a decent price as well. I purchased this one from Aura Fragrance for like around 180, I believe, for this 100 ml. So, I mean, really, that's kind of like high-end designer prices for the most part. And I mean, I know some people don't necessarily get decent longevity out of this one. I tend to get like around 7 to 8 hours or so, with really good projection for like the first hour and a half to 2 hours. So really, really enjoy this one. Like I said, it kind of gives you like, you know, vibes of like smelling like a Sprite. I would say not necessarily a fizzy Sprite, definitely more of like a flat, sweet Sprite for the most part. And then, you know, definitely in the dry down, like I said, it does kind of give you like that dry but clean sort of vetiver type of smell. All right. So again, man, definitely check out Byredo's Bal D'Afrique. All right, and then the last one on the list, man, this one is from Goldfield and Banks, and this one is Pacific Rock Moss. So Pacific Rock Moss, this is definitely, it's kind of like I guess you could say it is kind of like an aquatic style fragrance. It definitely more so to me, it comes across smelling more kind of like, I would say more like mossy, you know, definitely more mossy, more slightly kind of seaweedy, but like in the best way possible. You know, it has enough sweetness to it, in my opinion, to where it definitely it comes across as very like easy to wear and mass appealing, and it doesn't smell like super weird. I just, you know, this is a very, very unique scent. It's a scent that, you know, I had been looking to get my nose on for years. And, you know, once I smelled it, I fell in love with it. I really did. I definitely I definitely intend to smell more fragrances from this house. So far, I've smelled this one. I also have the Bohemian Lime, and then I've smelled the Ingenuous Ginger. I would say really the only reason why I didn't get a bottle of Ingenuous Ginger is because I already have fragrances that smell pretty similar to that. So it doesn't really make sense for me to pick that one up. But I do definitely intend to smell other fragrances like their Silky Woods Elixir. I know they just recently came out with another one called, it was something Amber. I can't believe, Tales of Amber, I believe is what that one is called. So I definitely want to get my nose on that and a few other ones from their line. But this is a super high quality, super long lasting, you know, kind of fresh aquatic style type of scent that really, really smells amazing, man. It really does. So again, I would say I would absolutely pick this fragrance up again if I were to lose it. For sure, this fragrance is also very affordable now. So, I mean, when it first came out, that's also another reason why I just couldn't really get my hands on it. Because, I mean, it typically was going for like around over $200, I believe, for like the full 100 ml bottle. I was able to pick this bottle up for like, I want to say maybe a little bit over $100. So it was not very expensive at all. And I'm very happy with the quality, you know, that I got from this fragrance for the price, man. So again, definitely check out Goldfield and Banks Pacific Rock Moss. And that's the list, man. That is my list of my top 10 niche fragrances that I would absolutely purchase again if something happened to my collection. Definitely let me know in the comments what you all thought about the list. Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can purchase all of these fragrances. And again, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you all in the next video.